Hey guys, it's Spoonie, and I've got three comic books as you can see here. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think these three have in common? Different publishers, right? Different artists, creative teams. The thing they have in common is that all three of them have a terrible fucking human involved in the production of them. Okay, so the first comic book creep I'm talking about is this guy right here. Goes by the name of Josue Rivera. If you're into comics, you might know him better as the artist Justiniano. He was active for both. He worked for both Marvel and DC. He was really active in the mid to late 2000s. He did a number of tie-in miniseries for DC events like Infinite Crisis and Final Crisis, and he got into some trouble, and he deserves to have been in jail, and he was, and he's since been released. The story was he had a friend of his or family member or something died, and he gave a thumb drive full of photos to the funeral home because he wanted to provide them with nice photos they could use for like a montage or something like that. Anyways, while the funeral home is going through that, they found some really awful stuff on there. They turned it into the police. Thankfully, he was arrested. Originally pled no guilty, but the amount of evidence against him, he did change to a guilty plea. Now, like I said, I know he is out at this point. I think his reputation is probably and deservedly in the trash. I doubt he could get any kind of work at any comic book company, let alone maybe some kind of marketing company or anything that does any kind of graphic design. Then that's pretty much it for him. Now, number two and number one, I guess, are debatable in terms of what you think is worse. Number two, I'm going to put Blake Leibel. Now, he is a Canadian who is a Nepo baby. His dad is a big Toronto land developer, and his mom, her dad, invented some kind of plastics company. So this guy had a ton of money with nothing to do but indulge in his passion projects because it doesn't matter if he fails because there's still money to keep him going to try something new. Anyways, I know he tried to get into TV writing and stuff. He actually worked on that Spaceballs animated series, and if you haven't heard of it, please don't look into it. Um, but his Hollywood writing stuff didn't really take off, so he started to do comics. Now he self started a publishing company called Fantasy Prone, and then later, believe it or not, this guy was actually able to team up with Devil's Due Press in order to get a wider distribution network for his magazines. Girlfriend, she was the mother of his child. His kid was actually born several weeks prior to her murder, and it was pretty terrible. Now, if you try to look him up on Wikipedia, it's actually really cool because Blake Leibel does not get his own page, nor does he deserve one. The page is about the murder of his girlfriend, Iana Kassian. And yeah, this guy's a scumbag. Now, you can go through this page if you want. It's kind of interesting, but it's really fucking gruesome and depressing, so just be careful. Um, but the stuff he did to her, it's just I know that if I read it aloud, this video will get like age restricted or something. And I mean, I'd ideally like everybody to be able to see it. But the highlighted section here is kind of what he did. It's really nasty stuff. They say that he was charged with murder, torture, mayhem, and aggravated mayhem. So I don't know what a mayhem charge is, but the fact that he got that and aggravated mayhem, like I think they're just trying to throw everything they could at him. Anyways, if you read through the highlighted paragraph, which I don't recommend because it's not pleasant, um, the last two or three sentences where it says she lived for at least 8 hours after being like brutally tortured. And the guy said, I've never seen this before. And I doubt if hardly any forensic pathologists in this country or abroad have ever seen this outside of perhaps wartime. So what he did to this person was so awful that the medical examiner could only compare it to somebody that had been like blown apart in war or something like that. I've heard that a number of the investigators, the police officers, and first responders to the scene have had to take a lot of like time off, go to therapy. Some of them have outright resigned just because the stuff they saw there. It said that it is the worst, most gruesome crime in the history of like Los Angeles, which is pretty crazy because you've got the Manson murders, you've got the whole Black Dahlia thing, when the Zodiac was out of California as well, and Richard Ramirez, and there's a lot of people from there. So yeah, this guy went crazy, and thankfully he's been locked away for life. He will never get free, which is appropriate. And what adds an even more twisted take to his story is the fact that apparently one of his last published works, which is like an original graphic novel called Syndrome, um, it's the way it's about like some I think he's like a medical examiner, and he finds out that there's actually something in people that makes them evil. So he starts to like study this serial killer or something. Anyways, apparently the way the killer kills one of his victims in the comic is very similar to what this guy actually did to his girlfriend. And so it's like this guy clearly had some dark, twisted fantasies. Unfortunately, he got the chance to live them out, and like I said, I'm grateful that he's behind bars for life. That's where somebody like that should be. And you know what? Like I've got the United Free Worlds, those first three issues, and I gotta say I like the concept. There's a reason I picked that up in those from an indie publisher, and I knew nothing about them. It was a cool idea. So like this second planet appears in orbit near ours, like a second Earth appears, but it's like more prehistoric. So it's like our world, which is all like technologically advanced with like tanks and fighter jets, versus their world, which is like they're riding dinosaurs, but the dinosaurs have like armor and weapons on them and stuff, like a Stegosaurus with a laser cannon or some crap. So there was some interesting ideas there. He had one called To Hell and Back that it had some big artists attached to it, like Greg Capullo and I think Eduardo Riso. Um, I don't know if that ever came out. Like I said, I when I first heard the name when this happened a while back, I was like, that name sounds familiar. And then I looked through my comics and I'm like, holy shit, I've got his stuff. Just like with Justiniano, that's actually what inspired this video. So again, you can look into this on your own. It is an interesting story, but it is so damn dark. Um, if you're prone to depression, stay away from this one. Now, like I mentioned, between this guy, between Blake Leibel and the next one, I guess you could debate as to who you think is worse. Um, And while Blake Leibel is like objectively one of the worst people alive, the next guy I would argue potentially even more of a threat. Now, this guy goes by the name of Gerard Jones. Who's Gerard Jones, you say? Well, he's done a lot of stuff, and that's why I think that he's probably the biggest problem. Now, it says here from 1987 to 2001, he wrote books for Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, basically everybody. And he worked on series such as Green Lantern, Justice League, Pokemon Adventures, Dragon Ball, Batman, and many more. Now, in terms of Pokemon and Dragon Ball, he just did the Western translations for that, but that's still his work. Now, you might also wonder, is that why for Green Lantern, Volume 3, the one that started post Infinite Crisis and was the one that eventually introduced Kyle Rayner when Ron Mars took over and it became like a really good book? Well, the first 50 issues leading up to his breakdown, the Emerald Twilight, Emerald Dawn series, where Hal Jordan becomes Parallax, that first 50 issues was written by Gerard Jones. So if you're wondering why DC doesn't seem to want to reprint that material, I think this is the reason. I think they don't want to have to pay this guy residuals. Now, I'm just going to scroll down here a bit to the article on Wikipedia. It says charges of distributing and possessing images of child abuse. His lawyer entered originally a plea of not guilty, but then he changed his plea to guilty, admitting that the police had found numerous electronic devices containing tens of thousands of images and hundreds of videos of this material in his home. So he was sentenced to 6 years in prison, and he's actually been released almost 2 years ago now. And yeah, like all these other people, he's never going to work in the industry again. But the fact is, since 87 and it says what, he got arrested in 2016. This is a guy that had built his reputation, his legacy off of popular children's properties. Green Lantern and Dragon Ball, you could debate at the time, like, well, it was the 90s, kids weren't reading comics. But stuff like Dragon Ball and Pokemon, this is kid heavy. Now, if you go on Amazon or if you go into like a physical retail bookstore and you look for your copy of Dragon Ball the manga, the newer printings have a different translator. I think it's some Japanese person who's actually doing the Japanese to English. But if you go on Viz's official website here, where I can buy the physical paperback or digital copy of Dragon Ball in Canada, it's $11.99. And you'll see here they have a free preview. So we click on the free preview. Okay, so there's the free preview. But wait, what's this up here? English adaptation, Gerard Jones. So this is why I think DC won't reprint that Green Lantern stuff. I think they don't want to have to pay this creep. And that's why in all currently available retail copies of the original Dragon Ball, and I think he did Dragon Ball Z as well, they all have new translators, and the reason why this is free is because they don't have to pay anybody. Now, I don't know how this kind of material works, residuals for this stuff. This is also this is work that would have been done decades ago when the laws on that kind of stuff were different. But it really is kind of shocking how pervasive this guy is. It's just, if you want to see, he looks like a fucking creep. Yeah, and possessing and distributing. What an asshole. And also ordered to pay $10,000 for restitution. What I found out recently is people who are victims of this abuse material that's circling through the internet, every time somebody gets caught in possession of that material, these people actually have to pay a fine, and that fine actually goes as restitution to the victim of the material. And I don't know if that's only in America. I don't think we have that in Canada. I think it's an interesting concept, but I guess that's for smarter minds than me to debate whether it's actually appropriate. So yeah, he was arrested on those charges. He was released at the end of 2022. Here, if you're interested in seeing the type of stuff he worked on, so yeah, the first 50 issues of Green Lantern. So again, this is probably why you'll never see this stuff reprinted, which is unfortunate because I'm curious to see how that era went. I don't think I've actually read any of it before. You can see here he did El Diablo for DC. For those of you who, okay, he did The Shadow when DC had the rights to The Shadow and was publishing it for a bit. Alec Baldwin was in the movie, and it was a piece of shit. Um, the other thing I wanted to point out is he did a lot of work for Malibu. And if you know anything about the Malibu, the Ultraverse, he actually created Prime. He created this character. Now, Marvel bought Malibu, I don't know, in 97 or some crap. As I understand it, they bought Malibu to gain access to their coloring and printing technology, which was Marvel was still doing like ink on paper and stuff like that, and Malibu was starting to do like laser printing and stuff, getting a lot like nicer pages and coloring and stuff like that. So, like I said, I heard Marvel bought Malibu really just for that purpose. They haven't done anything. I think originally when they bought them, there was like an Ultraverse crossover. And I think for a while, the Infinity Gauntlet actually disappeared into the Malibu Ultraverse. But Malibu's most successful property is a little series called Men in Black that was adapted into those Will Smith movies. So yeah, Marvel and now Disney is making money off of Men in Black movies without having to do anything because they own the intellectual property rights. So they have to keep relicensing them if they want to make more movies. And that's pretty much it. This is just a video I've been wanting to do for a while. I know there's a lot more creeps involved in some of our favorite entertainment medium, like comic books. And it's an awful shame because some of this stuff, I own a lot of the Justiniano stuff. He did the Creeper miniseries for DC, the aforementioned Day of Vengeance, which was the Infinite Crisis miniseries, and then Countdown to Mystery, which was leading up to Final Crisis. I've got a lot of his stuff, and it's sad that I go back and I look at it now, and I can appreciate the art. I can separate the art from the artist, but this thing is, it's like a thorn stuck in the back of my mind. I don't think I'm ever not going to think about the guy who drew it, is what I'm trying to say. So from that standpoint, that stuff's kind of been ruined for good. Um, the United Free Worlds, like I said, was always kind of a cool idea. It was a cooler idea than the actual execution. And then the guy who created it is a terrible fucking person. And the same thing with Gerard Jones. Gerard Jones, on paper, he has not hurt anybody that we know about. He's just possessed and distributed harmful material. But I mean, again, this guy worked in the comics industry for decades. He did the Western adaptation of the Pokemon and the Dragon Ball manga. This guy had a lot of access to kids, I'm sure. And, I hope to God there's no stories that are going to come out, but you never know. Um, Thanks for taking the time to watch this. This is kind of a different video format for me. I've got a new computer and I'm trying to do things a little differently. If you feel like leaving feedback, that's cool. Otherwise, I get it. And I hope you'll join me for the next video. Okay, bye.